Hello and welcome back. Once again, joined by Preston Jacobs talking about episode 208, What Was Meant to Be. Any place where you'd like to start with this episode?
It was quite a fire hose,
Yeah.
of an episode, which is which is quite a contrast because you look at this last episode and it's just I would not say that the first 7 episodes were necessarily fast moving, like there's definitely downtime. It's definitely a slow burn. And then here it's the exact opposite. There is no time to breathe. It is just nonstop action for, well, the episode was like an hour and 20 minutes.
I think it was shorter
It
than
was,
that. I want to say
yeah.
like an hour 10 or something like that.
It was, I mean, in a broad sense, I'm a sucker for all plot lines like coming together into one thing at the end. So like I do really love the fact that like all of the characters are ending up in one place and like running into each other. Like don't get me wrong, that's really fun, and I really like that. And I think I liked the concept that everybody's expected path gets mixed up. So you're expecting Rand to blow the horn. They're trying to get Rand to blow the horn, but Matt blows the horn,
Mm-hmm.
And like Rand thinks he's going to save Egwene, but like Egwene doesn't need saving. And,
Mm-hmm.
things get a little mixed up. You think like the Nynaeve and Elaine are trying to save Egwene, but they end up healing Rand.
Rand.
Like
Yeah.
I do like how things were interweaved like that in a grand like structure sense, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's what was Robert Jordan's doing. But man, it was just a lot of battles. It was just a lot of explosions, and it was a lot at once.
Yeah.
Um,
It felt
yeah.
very fast in my opinion too. There were some changes that I think
Mm,
some people were a bit upset with, where a lot of
that's
people
always the
thought,
case, right?
yeah, yeah. A lot of people wanted Nynaeve to heal Egwene. Were
Mm,
upset that that Egwene was able to pull herself out of this by, killing Rhaena herself and, figuring out a way to outsmart her, I guess.
she kind of says like, so I was a little confused by that because like, okay, Egwene, I thought the reason that she was being enslaved was the fact that she was a channeler and that people saw her power and they wanted to like enslave her and use it. But
Hmm.
then she collars her overseer at the end, and the overseer is like, only channelers can do that. And she's like, yeah, I'm a channeler. And you're like, well, yeah, obviously you're a channeler. Like, isn't that why you were enslaved? Am I missing something?
So the
Do you know what I'm
big
talking?
twist, yeah, yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
big twist on that is that the slavers are actually channelers too. They just don't know it. Like they're so weak in the one power that they don't know that they can channel. So like putting the collar on
Oh.
her is like making her the thing she hates most, I guess.
Oh. So she didn't know that she had powers
Mm,
herself.
correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I kind of had
It
that backwards. Yeah.
Well, there's so
Okay.
much happening, like it's really hard to get all of these little like moments. Like you said, like there's a battle raging, explosions everywhere,
Right.
things are happening at like a lightning pace. But
Yeah. There's a few things that I thought were really interesting, like like when Perrin just has this wolf get like killed immediately. I thought that was so funny. Like I was just like, "Wow, your wolf sucked." Somebody just came up and
no,
axed him, and that was it.
no.
But but it becomes a very significant plot point.
Yeah.
But I did think it was very funny because it's like, oh my god, you've got this power, you can control wolves, and he just goes and kills his wolf immediately,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh,
Well,
that's
that happens
pretty
in the
great.
That happens in the
Yeah.
first book, right? Did you remember that from The Eye of the World? Because that's part of book 1.
Oh, is it? I
Yeah,
mean, I've forgotten it. I've
yeah.
forgotten it. But then, he comes back and needs to kill and gets angry and kills the dude, which of course causes big trouble with the son, because no son likes to see his father killed in
No.
front of him. Um, but it was a really weirdly placed. There was a really weirdly placed joke where the guy with the patch for an eye who got his face smashed into the spike.
Yes,
He
yes.
he 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 looks at him and is like, "Don't be surprised that I'm one of the um horn heroes." And it's like, no, I think like Perrin is still all wrapped up in the whole fact that he like murdered that dude's dad. um
Right?
like you're right, and it's like he's not paying attention to you. I know that you're a
Uh,
ghost and everything, but like it doesn't seem like he was paying attention
right.
to him. Like it was very chaotic.
I I'm gonna be honest, the whole Uno thing didn't land for me, but
Yeah,
that's okay. I people love him, I get it, but it was a little
right.
fan
I
servicey, but that
it was the it was the wrong place
for
to shove
jokes.
in
Yeah,
that joke when you're in the
agreed.
middle of this like very emotional
Emotional? Yes.
situation.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed. Hard agree.
I'm trying to piece everything together because so I liked the Matt doing something. For first of all, Matt doing something, you're just so relieved that he's
Yes.
doing something that you're like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, this is so nice, that because he's done next to nothing for, I mean, he's literally done nothing for half the episodes and then next to nothing for the other ones. And so the fact that he's like cleverly like takes this knife and makes it into a spear, and doesn't touch anybody with it, and then is running around and runs into like his friends and accidentally kills Rand and blows a horn and he does so much really
Mhm.
like in
Yeah.
this episode. So I did really like, yeah, like him cleverly like, making that spear and everything, and that was very fun, like seeing him break out of the room and cause all of this trouble.
Mhm.
So that was I think a high point. I don't know if like Perrin, besides the scene where he's killing the guy's dad, I don't know really like if he really fulfilled. I wasn't really sure again like why he was showing up.
Right, like what his
Um,
role was in this.
right, like Rand wanted to save Egwene. I know, so that's like pretty there, and I know Nynaeve wants to rescue Egwene. So like they
Mhm.
all have their motivations, and then Matt was taken prisoner and was there. But like, I don't feel like they talked about the horn enough for all of the characters to know what the horn is and that Rand needs to blow the horn.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Right?
think some more
Like
exposition on the horn could have been really helpful.
considering it's like, based on a book called The Great Hunt where they're looking for this horn. Like the
Yeah,
only
and
character that
and
was searching for the horn was Perrin, and he barely mentioned it while he was searching for it. But like,
right, right.
does he know that the dragon is supposed to blow it? Does he know that these heroes are supposed to come back? Like when all of that happened, it seemed very random because like we weren't, people didn't really press the importance of like the horn
Right.
and everything that much. Like there's a couple mentions of it like over the course of 8 episodes, but not that many, right?
Right,
Like I
right. Yeah, I mean, I talked to my mom after she finished it, and she said essentially the same thing. She was like, "Oh, that was really interesting with the horn. I didn't expect that." And I was like, "So you had no idea what the horn was?" And she was like, "I didn't even know they were looking for a horn." And I'm like, "Okay."
right, for it being the season's MacGuffin, it's
Mhm.
a it's seldom mentioned. Like at the very beginning, I remember all of the people are going on their quest to search for it, and they present it like this mythological thing that no one that's not real. And then Perrin is kind of on that quest, but and yeah, there's the scene where he opens the box and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
you're not really told like why this thing is important, how it links to the dragon, because at this point didn't it doesn't ever like besides Matt doesn't everybody think that Rand is dead?
Correct.
So I so like how would Perrin know that he needs to get the horn to Rand?
Well,
And
when
did
Matt
Matt ever
comes
talk
out
about the horn? Like he's like the one character that doesn't seem like he was even into the horn. So when he's given the horn, does he know what it is? And does he know that like Rand needs to blow it? Was he told that Rand was the dragon? There's all
Matt
you
knows.
know,
Matt knows everything
yeah.
because he ran into Rand previously.
Right.
So
So I guess
when he
Rand and
links
their
up
little
with
beer.
Perrin, they
Yeah.
exchange words and he's like, Rand's alive. I saw him. His hair looks like shit. And they're like, hey. And he's like, oh, the Horn of Valir. Rand needs it. Go, Matt, go. And that was about it.
Right. Like
It was so
no,
fast.
he literally I mean, I think it's funny that these characters who exist in a world with many cities and many miles and they like run into each other in the streets like and are just like, oh, my
Of
good
course.
friend.
Yeah.
Like like
Yes.
what are you doing here? It's great. This is a horn. Bring it to Rand. Like
Right?
because Matt needs to communicate to Perrin that Rand is alive, and Perrin needs to communicate to Matt that this horn needs to be blown. But like putting those pieces together should take longer than 2 seconds, considering like, wait, he's alive, but why would he need to blow this horn?
Right.
Doesn't matter. Just take it and run. Like,
So,
okay. Can I
yeah.
blow it? Can anyone blow it? Like,
Right.
because
Right.
apparently now anybody can blow it. So really, Perrin could have blown it, and everything would
Anybody
have been
could have.
fine.
Yeah, anybody could have. But
So why is
that's
there was no
it's
reason to get
just
it to there was no reason to get it to Rand.
no one knows though. Like even in the books,
Yeah.
nobody knows. They think that Rand is the only person who can blow it. Or that
Yeah.
if a bad person, like one of the bad guys blows it, the army will actually fight for the other side. So like I don't
Mm,
know. It's
yeah.
even in the books it's a little confusing and
Yeah,
uh
I guess we needed a little more we needed a little more explanation. I mean,
yep.
it's just that there was so much and they're packing it all in. Now, I will say the visuals are pretty crazy through the entire thing. Just the desert stronghold and the scenes of like Moraine and Lan on the beach is a pretty like stark, crazy scene.
Do you know what
Um,
set that is?
with
It's the Morocco set from Danny's like
Yeah,
Misa Misa moment.
it is. Yeah. So they definitely found some nice places to film and had some sunny days.
Yeah, they did.
Um, the What's weird is I almost so again this is about like Rosamund Pike getting like screen time, but I just feel like Moraine was this extra shoved in element that didn't need to be there. Like, she argues on a beach with Lan and like rebonds. I didn't know that their bond was this was much like her losing her power, but they even though she lost her power, they were still so emotionally bonded that I thought they were still bonded. But here they
Mhm.
rebond. And you're like, oh, that's a thing they need to do. Like, okay. Like
Well,
I didn't think,
I sent you that link
yeah.
too from that Vulture
Hmm.
piece where they're like, it was a very erotic rebonding moment. And I was like, see, Preston, you're not the only one who thought it was
Not the only
sexual.
one. Well,
Yep.
certainly if before it was a bunch of like Sam and Diane, like two people bickering stuff for like more than a season.
Hmm.
Um, that kind of sexual tension. But like this was like them standing like face to face, like
On
in a
that
very
beach.
erotic way, like
Yeah.
being like, oh, like as their chi is flowing around or whatever, So it was even more sexual tension in this situation. By the way, the we're not equals thing, like meaning that she really meant that he was above her. Like you could see that coming from like a million miles away. Like it's
I
just
remember we talked about it, yeah.
yeah,
Yep,
it's just like no one phrases things like that unless you're like a little looking for that or
right.
you're looking for that reveal later.
I will say, like, visually, that whole beach scene was probably, in my opinion, like, some of the nicest visuals of the season, I would say. But yeah, like, it's
Yeah, absolutely.
interesting because you've got Rosamund Pike, like, their lead. You've gotta put her in every episode because she's the lead. You're not gonna pay this
Yeah.
woman and not put her on the show in every episode. I do think what you're saying about how certain characters, it does feel like their roles aren't almost as needed in this, like, grand scheme of things. I
Mm,
will say, though, like, one of the things that I did appreciate with Moraine being there is that these last words that Moraine shared between Lanfear, because Lanfear, like, boots her out of the ways and is like, "By the way, raise the banner when it's time. Bye." And then, like, that's it. And so Moraine is, like, standing there on the beach, like, "What was that?" And then
yeah.
you move forward, you go forward, and then it's like the reveal is like, "Oh, okay, Lanfear's been working for Rand the whole time. The whole reason that Loyal, the Ogier, and Ingtar got the horn is because they reveal that Lanfear gave it to them." So, like, I liked this interaction between Moraine and Lanfear because it sets up this, like, really
Mm,
wild stuff that happens between them later on in the story, but it also reveals Lanfear as, like, this really ambiguous force and, like, this
mm.
whole story.
So I think I've pinned down like it's not that I didn't. This is the funny thing. It's like you like something, but then we're talking about it, and we always talk about like the things that like are weird or that didn't work.
Right, right.
Um, which is just the nature of things. Like it sounds like we're being
Absolutely.
critical, but like this just it's that there's a lot of characters, and unlike in most stories where all of the characters seem to have one or two motivations, each character has a very specific motivation, and we aren't necessarily communicated as the audience isn't given what that motivation is. Like, yes, Rand's motivation was clear, was crystal clear. Nynaeve's motivation and Elaine's motivation was crystal clear. Everybody else's motivation is a little murky. Like, we're not sure what Perrin is doing and what his goal is. We're not sure what Matt's motivation is and what his goal is. We're not sure what Moraine's motivation is and what her goal is. Like we're not sure what Lanfair's like motivation is and what her goal is. You know, like each it gets really messy, especially the dark characters. Like Ishmael, like we find out that he actually just wants to die and like fully die, like out of the wheel die,
Mhm.
and somehow he thinks that Rand can do that rather than having him be reborn again. But which I guess we were given that motivation last episode, so that one's a little more clear. But a lot of these characters, you're just like, what are you doing? Why are you arriving in the city? What are you trying to achieve? What were the White Cloaks doing? You're like, why are the White Cloaks going to war at this time? Was that
Yeah.
explained? Did they somehow explain that in the Perrin story? Like I'm
Yes.
trying to like I'm like, did I just miss that?
They at the well, it was a couple episodes ago where Perrin meets up with them. The Shan have female channelers, which is, like, the main people that the White Cloaks hate. So,
Yeah.
like, anyone who can channel, you're a witch to them, but also, the White Cloaks caught word that the White Tower everyone was sent, like, a message from the city, like, "Help us, save us, we need help. The White Tower didn't show up. So this puts them in a prime position to be the big heroes, and they
Mm.
love a good PR story if they can rescue a city when the female channelers can't. That's really great for them.
Yeah, I mean they're an interesting crew in that they think they're good guys and say that
Mhm.
they're on the side of light, but they're clearly like villainous characters, you know.
Right.
And like very clearly from Egwene's trauma from season one with her run-in with them, she kind of
Mhm.
affects how the battle goes
Yeah.
on the ground and stuff like that. And then I was a little shaky on like the channelers all get kind of blown off their tower, and then her overseer like blames her for it. And it wasn't exactly clear like um
What
how that
happened?
happened. And yeah, so it's just there was a lot going on in the episode, and I think that, yeah, had they spent more time just like establishing and reiterating motivation, like again,
Mhm.
like Perrin, like why is he in that city, and why does his like and all the boss girls that he like is running with, like why do they want to go to that city? um
Perrin was still
you know
trying to find Loyal, the Ogier, who was captured in the beginning.
oh right, so he happened to be captured in the same city, and so, you know, lucky for them, they all just arrive and start
Right.
fighting, you know, like,
Right.
and there's a lot of backstabbing and inter-army fighting, which is also extra confusing. Yeah, fire hose. It was a big fire
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 hose.
hose.
I wonder too if I think one of the things, okay, so in the books, like this battle that happens in Foam, it's very like it's just one location, like you're not moving
Mm.
throughout like a giant city. But with the show, like I did appreciate that it wasn't just like everyone runs into each other in one place and then it's like, and everyone's fighting. But
Oh, you're saying in the book they're just like all fighting in the same square or
yeah,
the
pretty
same.
much.
Oh geez, okay.
The girls are running
No,
off, the boys are together. That's about it.
so I would say it was a fairly impressive like battle scenes, and I mean fairly impressive in a number of ways. One, like I can tell who's fighting, and I can tell what they're doing, which makes a very good battle versus like there, you can do a lot of stuff like fast editing, or if everybody's like a clone of each other and they all look the same, like it's,
Mhm.
can, there's things that ruin fight scenes. But for the most part, I knew who was fighting, I knew who was dying. I knew the swings and the play by plays. So
Yeah.
I mean, I want to say that it was very good fight, very good action. And considering it was just going on for like a full over an hour, it was just
Right.
battles and battles and battles. And like, it sounds like I'm being critical, but like for what the season was, considering that you had literally eight, I want to say eight storylines intersecting all at once, all at the same time, it was fairly, it was fairly good in the sense that you're
Mhm.
doing something very difficult because you've got your Rand storyline where he needs to go and try to rescue Egwene and like maybe announce being the dragon. And then you have Egwene like dealing with her overseer situation and her captive. And then you've got Nynaeve and Elaine coming in to rescue them. And then you have Perrin coming in. Um, and then at the same time, you've got Matt's plot, and you have Moraine's plot, and you have Lanfear's plot, and you have Ishmael, and they're all intersecting
Mhm.
at once, and you need resolution to eight different plot lines that all in
Yes.
the same location. Um, for for how difficult that was, I suppose they pulled it off. But I was very confused on everyone's motivation, and it seemed really weird that like this MacGuffin that we as the audience are vaguely familiar with, that all of the characters kind of know what to do with it, like
Right.
at the last
Right.
moment.
Do you think if
But
they slowed things down a little bit more and focused on these like the horn, like the backstory, what it's
mm,
about, Sometimes I'm afraid that they don't do that type of stuff because audiences, like, need that, like, snappy, like, action, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think there's also, sometimes people take these rules of thumb and they take them too far in life. And I'm talking about anything. Like, say you're trying to be a good writer. And like
Mhm.
one of the things people teach writers, they're like, oh, don't use the passive voice. And so then they never use the passive voice. And you're like, no, you have to use the passive voice
Right,
sometimes. You can't just eliminate the passive voice. In this situation, people are like, oh, too much exposition like ruins
right.
um shows. So
Like,
eliminate
show, don't
exposition.
tell. Yeah.
Right. Show don't tell. So they're trying only show. And you're like, well, you have to tell
Yeah.
occasionally. Like it's
Mhm,
this is really a situation where it was all show and no tell, and you're like, what is going on? Like
mhm.
I've never experienced a show where I'm like, I wanted a little more exposition. Like,
Yeah,
right? Like, it's
I
so
get it.
weird to approach something and be like, I want more exposition. I need more time of people talking at each other. Like
Mhm.
like the exact
Yeah.
opposite of what they tell you because they went too far. Like,
I think those were
you
some
know,
of my favorite scenes of the season too. Like, I really enjoyed, like, Rand in this sanitarium, and he's spending time with this man, and you're really getting a feel for, like, what does this world look like? What does this landscape look like? They're talking about a
mhm.
war that happened, 30 years ago or something like that. And, like, these smaller moments where you're kind of, like, getting to know about the landscape, getting to know about the characters, and, like, again, like, learning their motivations.
Yeah, in fact, one of my favorite parts um of this episode was actually Ferris. Is that how we
Mhm.
pronounce his name?
Yeah.
Fares. I don't know. Um, man, he was so good in this episode. By
He's
the way, he
great.
was so
He's great.
he's yeah. I mean, even though he got killed, somehow I just want him back. I mean, I understand that they introduced a new baddie at the end, like
Mhm.
a new big bad, but like he was so great. And the fact that I'm like rooting for him, like
Oh,
like I
same,
was weirdly
same,
I was
same.
I was like rooting for him over anybody else. I'm like, somehow he's converted me to the dark side
Yeah,
because I like
yeah.
him. I like him more than everybody else. And I'm like,
I'm right there with
but
you.
when he was describing like his friends and how they were all friends together and like you could like see the look on his face and like the feeling and everything and everything, and man, the guy did a great job. But yeah, so I mean, stuffs can be communicated like that, where I guess I didn't need to know that much about their backstory because I could read it on the actor's face.
Yeah,
um in that situation, he did a lot of great heavy lifting. But yeah, for the most part, just wanted some more explanation on what the hell
yeah.
is going on.
I think that's so important, especially in fantasy, because I feel like the majority of the time people pick up fantasy books because they really like world building. Like, they like these far off lands and these interesting people, and things are different, and you wanna get to know
Yeah.
this world that you just opened up and jumped into. And with the show, we don't have enough time to, like, explore these types of concepts when you have to
Hmm.
keep, like, the action and and some people's, like,
Right.
attention, I feel like, which
I mean, I feel like this is a show for book fans because, like, your experience with it, you're watching everything and it's seamless. You're like, well, all of this makes sense to me. You
right,
know,
but for people who haven't read the books, like, confusion.
yeah.
My mom specifically is who I'm thinking of because
First of all,
yeah.
can I tell you that mothers are the best
Yes, yes. Gauge.
like measure. Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's like they don't have any of the backstory. They haven't been corrupted by like seeing other fantasy stories that do the same
Mhm.
thing or whatever. They just watch it and they just tell you their honest opinions. So
Right.
um a quick story I was Rings of Power, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. like came out.
Mhm.
And the lead character that plays Galadriel is, for some reason, like I didn't find her very likable. And but the thing is the show is filled with all of these trolls online who are like hate the girl power and
Right.
everything, and they're just like,
Right.
ah, da, 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 da. And I'm like,
Mhm.
ah,
Is it
is there
me?
like,
Am
is it
I
me? Am I
Yeah.
secretly a sexist? Like, am I not liking her
Yeah.
because I'm sexist?
You
Like,
talked to
you
mom, and
know,
what did mom say?
right? So my mom watched the show, and she's just like, I watched the show, and it just seemed really boring, and I just didn't like the lead character. She was so unlikable. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, phew,
Okay.
like it's not me. It's not me. It's not my sexism.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that like she really did just play the character unlikable. And you're like,
Mhm.
oh, thank goodness I had my mother. Like the complete, because
Right.
it's not like my mom is online clicking around. It's
Right,
like
right.
completely unbiased opinion, completely and utterly unbiased opinion. Like
Yes.
it's so
Yes.
pure. I was
Mhm.
like, okay, okay, okay. So
My
they're the
mom
they're
said
the
Egwene's story was the best. She was so happy for Egwene. She said she teared up for Egwene, and
oh,
then
Head and Shoulders. Hers was the best. Head and Shoulders.
yeah,
Hers. I mean,
yeah,
and what's funny is it only starts like halfway through the season,
yeah, that's
right?
true.
So like yeah, it starts halfway through the season, and it's Head and Shoulders the best one. I'd say number two is Rand, only because the actor and the character that plays Lanfear have some really good like sexual tension and play off each other, and like so they did. I'd say that was my second favorite storyline
Yeah, that same
of the
same with my
season.
mom. She said the Egwene story was her favorite story, but she said Rand is her favorite character because she feels a lot of sympathy for him if he's going to go crazy and he's just trying his best, is what she said.
He is like he's this little boy.
He
Everybody loves
is.
this little
He
boy, and you're just like,
is.
oh, the poor little boy. And
Mhm.
he had his heart broken by that by that older woman. And the poor little guy.
Trollop.
It's like
Yes. Yeah.
that's the whole thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, those two stories were Head and Shoulders the best. I mean, I think Matt had a strong final act because he was actually given some screen time, but at the beginning he was just doing nothing. And poor Perrin, they just give him one note, one emotion and one note, like to do every episode. So you're like,
Yeah.
what are you supposed to do with that?
I
Poor
do
poor
think
guy.
I do think Perrin's story probably suffered the most because in the first season, they couldn't fast track his powers, I guess, because they couldn't
Mm,
rule him out for the big "Who was the dragon?" mystery. So they had to kind
right,
of,
right.
like, slow roll that. And then with this season, there wasn't as much for him to do, but, like, here I come again with, like, my book reader stuff, but knowing where his
Yeah.
story goes next, I'm like, "Okay, I'm not worried about it for this season," like, because
It's all set up. I mean, I guess after that,
Mhm.
the villain story is like the strongest story.
Oh, yeah,
Um, you
hands
know,
down.
that
Ferris is just so fun
yeah,
to watch.
and it's so funny because I've only seen him in like bit roles and other things.
It's like a comedian.
But
Have you seen his Wikipedia, image on Wikipedia? You'll enjoy
no,
it. Check
no.
it out
I
sometime.
think like he does play a bunch of like I've seen him in bit roles in like Chernobyl and in Westworld and stuff like that. But like yeah, no, he really should get some more lead roles here. But I'm sure he does. Oh my gosh, he was in he had a bit role in Zero Dark 30, he had a bit role in Rogue One, like a lot of these little
He's
things.
all over the place, yeah. I
But
hope
yeah,
there's potential for him to come back, I don't know, so
I think, well, I mean, I guess we're probably going to see a lot more of him. I think people are going to recognize him from this now. And, but in Sweden, he apparently always
Right,
a big thing.
right. Yeah, his wife is a baddie. She is You were
Oh
talking
yeah.
about her. She's gorgeous. Oh my God. She's a 10.
I mean,
She's very
oh, I
beautiful.
know. Consider it's hilarious because, like I say, he's got this like. I mean, I'm gonna call him like sexy troll face. He has a sexy troll face, you know. Um, like he has very very big caricature like
Yeah,
features, but he
very
still pulls
expressive.
off like
Yeah,
right. He still pulls off like sexy, but like unlike his wife is just
a baddie.
Swedish Barbie doll. Is that how
She,
we the
yeah,
best way
she's
to describe it? Yeah.
yeah, would agree.
She
Can
she al-
concur.
she also looks like 20 years younger than him.
Mhm. That too.
That's it.
Yep. Yeah, I
Um,
so what would you say for, like, season 3? Like, slow it down, more exposition.
yeah, but I understand why they're doing what they're doing. I mean, they have how many books are there? 14? What is it? How
It's
many-
yeah, it's like 13 in a prequel, so
13 and a yeah. So they've got 13 books to get through. They're like, okay, how many seasons are we honestly going to be given? 5, 6, 7? Like,
mhm,
even if you're assuming the something like 7, which is very generous, but like
mhm,
that's you still got to go more than a book a season, right? So
mhm.
they have to do it. So so I get it. I get why they're going really fast. And I mean, I understand all of their. It's funny to be in this like like meta sense where you watch enough stuff where you're like, oh, I understand like how stuff is made, and I'm like, okay, why is so much time being given to Moraine? Oh, right, because it's Rosamund Pike and she's like
Right.
the show like the lead. So we need to give her time. Oh, okay. Plus, like certain characters, even if they're not used for a short period of time, they've got to like keep them going for the next season when they come
Mhm.
back. When they
Yep.
come back in their importance.
Yeah, because you
Um,
have to put a hold on your actor, like, if you don't want them to run off to a different show, you have to make sure that it's worth
right.
their time.
Like in Game of Thrones, like because we Jamie isn't really a big character until the third book, and yet he's given all the screen time in the Game of Thrones show and in seasons 1 or 2 where they're just like making up scenes for him.
Mhm.
You're like same with Theon, like Theon season 1, like we're gonna make up this like sex worker
Yep.
plot because we need Theon to do something for a season.
Yep.
Um, but so I suppose when people are writing books that they think are going to be adapted, try to keep all of the characters on an
Think
even
ahead, guys.
usage. But it's very clear that that was not what Robert Jordan was thinking. Robert
Yeah.
Jordan was thinking that I'm going to just keep writing books and try to make money off of these books, and I'm going to extend it out as long as possible.
In
um,
every book, there's, like, so many hundreds of new characters. It's like it gets to the point
yeah.
where there's no way for a TV show that you could bring in that many people. Like, this is a fraction they brought in, and look how it feels a bit chaotic. Like,
Hmm.
you forget who is who a little bit if you're not, like, very much, like, given that, like, reminder.
I'm reminded a bit of Charles Dickens, and you know his books were released actually as serials, and he was paid by the word. So he was
Okay.
trying. He was releasing
Make
soap
it
operas.
long.
He was like, yeah, he was trying to make it long. He was just creating content, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and so it's just I think Robert Jordan was doing the same thing, but doing it full book at a time. Like, oh God, I
Keep
just
this train
got to
rolling.
keep
Yeah.
this train rolling. This is my bread and butter. And then I don't know. It did get away from him. It did get away from him. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Well, Brandon Sanderson had to finish that up and, I mean, wrap up, like, these plot arcs that were just outstretched everywhere, but, I mean, he did what he could. He did
Right. I mean,
good.
I was actually thinking about, because it's not like I haven't heard about how the whole series ends and everything, but I almost feel like this episode was a microcosm of the entire series in that sense, right? Like you have like all of these characters that you've created a lot of storylines, way too many storylines, and now they all need to be wrapped up all at once. So we're just going to have a fire hose battle that goes on and on and on and on, which is what people tell me like the last books of Wheel of Time are, that it's just like battle, 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 battle that
Mhm.
just keeps
Yeah.
going, you
Yeah.
know. So I don't know if you've read the whole series, but would you say that this is kind of like a microcosm of the whole series, or not?
So
You think that there's
so
um
I'm not 100% sure, but I think what had happened is at this point when Robert Jordan was writing this book, he was not
mm,
sure how long this series was going to be, if it was going to be like 3 books or if it was going to be like 6 books. So the ending
mm,
of this felt like you could end it here and say like that was
yeah.
it, or like it's ambiguous enough that you could keep going.
I see.
So
Mm,
it's like the whole
mm,
MacGuffin, like we're chasing after the horn gets stolen, we get it back. Now they've got it. Now it's over here. Now we're trying to save Egwene. Now we're in the streets. Things are happening. We're fighting. Like it's really a lot happening, but also this is the first book in the series that feels entirely different to, well, it's the second book, so obviously, but the first book
yeah,
is
yeah.
much more like your typical high fantasy, very like Tolkien, like that. And
Right. It's
this
got
is
got
where
a beginning and an end. Yeah.
Mhm. And this one is very much like Robert Jordan kind of being like, "Okay, I'm gonna pivot from that a little bit." Like, they already gave me, the go ahead. I get to write as many as I
Mm,
want, I guess. I'm gonna do it how I want. And then this is where things, like, really start to expand. Things start getting much more complex. And, like, this is like, in the sense of the entire series, it feels like this book is the prologue, where it's like, okay, now we know like where our characters are headed from here.
I see. Because even in this episode, they did resolve a lot of plot lines. I mean, obviously that we're introduced to our new big baddie at the end, and it doesn't seem,
Mhm.
it seems like things are still going, but there was at least a lot of resolution. It wasn't just open ended, or
Right,
or anything like
right.
that. So at least there's that aspect to it. There's not so much of a cliffhanger or anything like that.
At the end of this book, Rand thinks he actually fought the Dark One, like, the devil
Mm.
himself. And then it's like, surprise, that's not what happened, Rand.
So
So,
okay, so it's similar in the sense, even though here Rand knows he's not fighting the Dark One, but like say Ishmael was like the Dark One, and then we have the kind of teaser ending. There was kind of a teaser ending in the books as well.
a little bit. At the end of this book, Lanfear shows back up and is like, "Oh, by the
Hmm.
way, like I'm not Selene. I'm one of the Forsaken. Bye." And so,
Oh, so the her reveal is much later. Okay.
yes.
Hmm. I see. Ru- I mean, aren't we happy that we got like the sex scene, the violent sex scene here, like in this season, the
Why?
very memorable
Why?
Lanfear gets her throat slit as Rand. That scene, aren't we happy we got that?
Do they really, I mean,
For
in this day and age of 2023, do we really need more of that? Like, really, do we? I don't know. I don't know. Who am I? Who am I to say? Who am I to
good
judge what
times, good
people love?
times.
Who am I to kink shame?
It's almost, the thing is like that kind of horror thing is
Mhm.
it's happened so much now, the whole, like, something horrible happening the moment someone ejaculates, that it's actually, like, kind of getting to be a trope. Oh, yeah, it's one of those things that
Yeah.
they're in the middle of sex, and then that happens, so, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I will say, I think next season, the book, since I think they're going to be mostly adapting like one book next season. It shouldn't be as
Mm,
chaotic in terms of like all of these crossing plot lines. And from what I know, I guess it should be much more like linear for the characters. But that's something I'm really looking forward to because
what
this mixing of two
uh
books, yeah.
So let's see. I want to say they renewed season 3 way
Mhm.
back in July of 2022. So they do not have season 4 confirmed, right? But
Correct.
we'll see. We'll see. I mean, people get surprised or whatever, but Amazon, it has a lower rate of cancellation for their shows than
Netflix.
other than other streaming
Yeah.
services.
Yeah, I saw your
Uh,
video that you guys were talking about that.
yeah. I think a big thing also, Amazon doesn't have to necessarily have to worry about things as much because people get Amazon Prime for other reasons
Mhm.
than
Yeah.
than watching these shows.
Free
So
shipping. Yeah.
Amazon, yeah, free shipping and Whole Foods, whatever. So like it's it's they have different motivations from the rest. So I kind of see Wheel of Time being safe, but who knows? Maybe I'll be proven wrong.
Yeah, who can tell? Maybe they're just trying to sell those books. Selling books, selling Kindle subscriptions, all of that.
I didn't even think about that. Um, oh no, that you know what? Their sales have gone up
Oh, yeah, they
since
had
the
to
show
have.
came out.
Yeah, Rosamund Pike is redoing all the audiobooks herself, narrating them.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. That's a lot of talking for her. That's
I
a
don't
lot
know
of
how she still has her voice. I don't know.
but yeah, they say now that they've Robert Jordan has now sold more than 100 million books now with the adaptation. Okay. All right. All right.
All right, okay.
Well,
Should we wrap it up there?
yeah. Sure thing, sure thing.
Yeah, thanks
I
for
mean,
joining me this season.
yeah, anytime, anytime. You have another I mean, season 3 might not be out for a while. So what are you planning on doing in the meantime?
Little this, little that, whatever. I'm quite interested of this three body problem adaptation. I'm a bit nervous
Oh, right.
with Dave and Dan.
People are telling me that the Chinese ones are not bad.
I
Like the
watched
Chinese have already done. Yeah, you have?
I've watched the 10-cent version. It was good.
Okay.
It was like as one to one of an adaptation that you could possibly get with a little bit like pulled out due to political reasons.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, it's slow. Like I from what I understand, these like Chinese dramas are a lot slower than what Western audiences are used to. And for me, like that
Mm.
was definitely noticeable, but it was highly enjoyable. So, yeah,
Oh, nice.
it was good. We'll have to
All
see
right.
how Netflix pulls it off, but yeah.
Yeah, great.
All right.
All right.
Well, thanks, and we
All
will
right. Well,
until next time.
until next time.